Hello, everybody. My name is Odie Hawkins, and I'm here once again on this beautiful afternoon in Long Beach, co-presenting Radio on Video. Radio on Video. The show was created by Zola, Salena-Hawkins, and Odie Hawkins, and it involves putting radio shows that I have written in years past on video. That's the brief story of it.
For your intimate entertainment pleasure.
Say it again.
For your intimate entertainment pleasure.
I'll buy some of that.
All right.
Wow. The co-producer just spoke. The co-creator just spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife just spoke.
Uh-huh.
All in one. So there you have it.
Okay.
We want to make it a user-friendly show. We want to make it something that people will remember because of the content of the shows itself. So let me stop joking around and say that the Sears Radio Theater offered me the opportunity to write radio shows about people, places, and events that might not have been acceptable in other media at that point in time, maybe even now. This particular show is about a middle-aged African-American couple who find themselves in dire straits, lost a home. You had a couple of operations, the money was eaten up, inflation monster. They have 2 kids in Africa that they don't want to call on. They have relatives, they have church members. They feel too proud to want to ask them for anything. So they wind up, for a period of time, living on the L train in Chicago.
What's an L train? Is it like the
L train.
subway, or like the, the blue line or the green line?
Okay, those are really different kind of transportation modes. Mm-hmm. The subway in New York, for example, really goes underground. The L train, I think that's why they call it the elevated train, mm-hmm. Will have stations that are something like 2 or 3 stories above the streets. Mm-hmm. At one point, I hope they've updated things, but they had wooden platforms. Mm-hmm. And in the wintertime, they could be very treacherous. I've seen people run out of the train station to catch the train and slide down on the wooden platforms that had been iced over. Mm-hmm. If you wind up going to an L train platform, let's say 35th Street, 31st Street, mm-hmm. Rain, then snow, then cold weather, and it was ice. So you might be capable of falling under the train rather than jumping on the train.
Whoa.
So
dangerous. All right.
Make a long story short, mm-hmm. That's the difference. In this particular instance, we have 2 people who are living on the train. It's summertime. I named them the Blacks in sort of a propagandistic way, but also in a truthful way to indicate that these Blacks living on the train, Mr. and Mrs. Black, are in some small way representative of, in my mind, of how Black people have found themselves down and out, and yet managed to get on the train anyway, somehow, one way or the other. I'd like to start it.
Okay.
Let people know that you have some commercials in there from 1978.
79.
79. Oh my God.
And
ancient history. Think back to the Aztecs and the Cortez conquering Mexico and all that.
And
so when the commercials come on, just go with the flow. I think it's during the Carter era.
Yes.
So it has something to do with that. But also it has something to do with oil and all of the stuff that we're dealing with right now. So in some ways, history repeats itself. Remember what the great philosopher Muddy Waters said. You can't miss what you ain't never had. And you can't lose what you ain't got. You can't miss what you never had.
All right. And with that, and a repeat of history as we listen to the news, we will begin.
On with the show.
We will begin the show.
On with the show.
On with the show. All right.
Radio on video. We got a little cackling fire here for you to
says he'll keep Congress informed.
warm the cockles of your heart.
Concerning Zimbabwe, Rhodesia.
I have a
Earlier today, he said he had decided to continue economic sanctions
some
because he thinks the recent elections there were neither fair nor free. This is John Bohannon reporting on the CBS radio network.
The video might blur a little bit because the camera's a little tight,
the president's action.
it is radio on video.
No excuses.
So,
This is radio on video. No excuses. What happens? Remember, you can't lose what you ain't got. You can't miss what you never had.
I think basically he just didn't want to solution to this problem. He wanted to end up where he was.
Other criticism from Capitol Hill came from Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina. He said the United States made a
Jesse
plan
Helms?
of lifting sanctions after open and free elections. Mr. Carter says the elections gives the 4% white minority in Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, extraordinary powers. More CBS News in a moment.
Get the long-lasting collar that kills both ticks and fleas. Put the plus on your pet, the Hearts 2-in-1 Plus.
some people like
Big Plus in the Hearts 2-in-1 Plus collar. It kills dangerous ticks and fleas for up to 5 full months. Put the plus on your dog or cat now. Get really effective flea and tick protection for your pet, your
Don't
home,
worry
and
about
your
what
family
you're
for up to 5 months.
Put the plus on your pet, the Hearts 2-in-1 Plus.
Hi there. I'd like to remind you that there's a store not too far from you that has plenty to offer. Your Ben Franklin store. We're the original variety store, you know, with high-quality brand-name merchandise at prices you will like. So why don't you drop by sometime and discover just how nice shopping can be.
Discover Ben Franklin. We bring variety to life.
How many things are going along now?
I believe until if I hear a click.
We should have increased supplies of gasoline this month. That's the word from Energy Secretary James Schlesinger. He says unless there's an unforeseen disruption in oil imports, gasoline supplies will be better than last month. Schlesinger looked ahead to the fall and said it now appears that supplies of home heating oil will be adequate. A federal judge has given his approval for ferry and test flights of DC-10s while the planes are officially grounded. Investigators are trying to find out if engine mounts are poorly designed. And with the planes out of service, airlines and passengers are trying to cope. More from Harold Dow in Los Angeles.
With the DC-10 still grounded, the airline industry literally has its hands full trying to move people. All around the country, schedulers are trying to do everything possible to accommodate most of the 70,000 passengers originally booked on DC-10s. At Western Airlines, crews are taking advantage of the downtime by doing routine maintenance on some DC-10s. At another hangar, a spare 707 was being prepared for overseas flights to Honolulu. But the 707 carries 100 fewer people than the DC-10. American has canceled several flights, and like United and Northwest, is substituting 707s or DC-8s for the grounded DC-10. But Continental and National have bigger problems because the DC-10s make up a large portion of their fleets. However, Continental was fortunate. It was able to lease 3 727s from a California commuter carrier. The leased jets had to receive quick paint jobs. But there is no place in the world where a substantial number of jets can be leased to replace the DC-10. And that is what is worrying the airline industry.
Got that?
The summer tourist rush
You got
is about
that?
to begin.
Back in
Harold Dow,
79, they
CBS
still had
News,
these.
Los Angeles.
The official New China News Agency says China and Vietnam will resume their peace talks on June 25th in Peking. There's no reaction from Vietnam. The talks broke off May 18th, with officials at both sides blaming the other for a lack of progress. Syria is warning Canada that it will retaliate if the new Canadian government transfers its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Syria says such action would be against the line which Canada and most countries in the world have adopted, and in Syria's words, an encouragement of Israel's expansionist policies. Now this.
Mom, why didn't you show Mrs. Wood the ring Daddy gave you for your anniversary?
Because all she'd look at would be the brown spots on the back of my hand and guess my age.
Oh, Mother, if you're that sensitive,
Just rub it in.
I don't need it in porcelana.
Start to
Thank you.
fade.
You really don't.
Porcelana medicated fade cream actually works for brown patches and spots that come not only with age,
Those were
but
the
during
days.
childbearing years too. Porcelana is available at cosmetic counters everywhere. Porcelana, you say? I'll get some. It'll help bring back the natural tone of your skin in just 6 weeks. Porcelana. Just rub it in. Watch spots start to fade. Porcelana medicated cream. Use only as directed.
Four astronomers at the University of Massachusetts say they have evidence of 2 large oases on Mars which had been considered dry. The scientists say their information comes from a telescope on Earth and from water detection devices on America's 2 unmanned spaceships. One astronomer says the environment at both sites on Mars appears to be more hospitable than some extreme environments on Earth where microorganisms are thriving. John Bohannon.
Some extreme environments on Earth.
That's the theme from the Sears Radio Theater. Tonight, a program of love and hate with Cicely Tyson as your hostess. Here's a preview.
39 seats, 39 seats. Time to report for surface light. Watch yourself depart the train, please.
They didn't depart. They stayed on. Because by then, the L train was where they lived.
The Sears Radio Theater will begin after this message from your local station.
Tom's Pontiac, conveniently located in the Central West End, is making it easier than ever for you to buy a new car. Now, you know about Tom's outstanding service department at rock bottom prices, right? If you don't, come to Tom's, get a great deal on a car ahead of its time. A 1980 Phoenix. We're talking about $1 a gallon gas, right? Keep your wallet full of money, your tank full of gas. You can keep performance. 29 miles per gallon city, 37 mpg on the highway. What the price? $47.80 delivered. See the Phoenix now. Tom's Pontiac, 5225 Delmar, Central West End.
Behind millions of doors in America, people are trapped alone, suffering from a contagious disease that can be passed from parents to children. That disease is child abuse. It doesn't have to happen. With enough people who care, we can help prevent child abuse. For more information on what you can do, write Prevent Child Abuse, Box 2866, Chicago, Illinois 60690. A public service
Take advantage of
the Advertising Council and the National Committee for Prevention of Child Abuse.
This is Cicely Tyson. Listen to a familiar urban sound.
60 Durham, Cottage Grove, next stop. North and South service lane. Watch your stop when you leave the train.
Mrs. Mahalia Black woke up feeling slightly grouchy, looked across the aisle at her husband sprawled out on his seat, and yawned. A touch of guilt in the gesture because she had slept through her watch period. Friday night on the B train had been rough as usual, with the herd's partygoers, confusion makers, and others crowding on. She visually marked their place as being a few stops from the end of the line and asked herself if it would be better to stay on the train or get off for coffee. Her husband, Calvin Black, a late sleeper, yawned himself awake, an automatic reaction now after a month of going back and forth, back and forth. He clicked off a macho wink to his wife.
Come on. Sit over here with me. You come on over here.
He smiled, unable to resist the flirtatious number they played with each other from time to time, and moved to her side.
Well, what do you want to do?
I wonder if it was sexy.
We'll go have some breakfast.
Well, let's get off and have breakfast.
She dipped into her oversized ditty bag for the mason jar containing their dentures, uppers for him and a Bridgeburg section for her. The other passengers, a partied out Saturday morning bunch, ignored them. The Blacks, their teeth in place, moved to the collapsible exit doors. The motorman, one of their favorites, gave them a shy smile as they waited for the L's to come to a complete stop. They had worked out a great system for the motormen. The A's didn't care how long they rode the train. The B's didn't care and sometimes smiled. The C's were almost oblivious, either from lack of sleep, booze, drugs, or boredom. and the D's were on the wrong side of the other three.
Nelson Riddle.
Calvin, did you see this?
Yeah, I saw it. They don't want to see how a couple of English accents and 3 degrees each, or they want somebody who doesn't speak English at all.
Mrs. Black sighed and started at the top of the want ads column again. There had to be something there for them. She felt it in her bones. Squinting at the paper, she asked herself once more, how did it happen? That weird series of events that pulled the rug from under their feet, that made them tenants on the B train. And that's only the beginning of our story.
Sears Radio Theater, a new adventure in radio listening. 5 nights of exceptional entertainment every week, brought to you in Elliott Lewis production of the Sears Radio Theater. Our story, A Sense of Pride, by Odie Hawkins. Our stars, Nick Latour, Helen Martin, and Jim Mapp. The Sears Radio Theater is brought to you by Sears Roebuck and Company. Sears, where America shops for value.
Sears has a bedspread with all the muscle to resist the wear and tear it gets from high-spirited kids. It's Tough Cord, a sturdy blend of 75% polyester and 25% rayon. Choose from bunk, twin, and full sizes in 10 bright, solid colors, or 5 coordinating plaids. All machine washable and perma-pressed for no-fuss, easy care. When you want value in a strong and sturdy bedspread, look for Tough Cord. Because kids not only sleep in their bedrooms, they play there too. Among Sears retail stores.
This Father's Day with exciting menswear and popular accessories. We've got quite a lineup of values, each a sure winner for Dad. Find complete looks he'll wear to work, out to dinner, to the tennis court, or the baseball game. Plus extras for ties to t-shirts, gloves to wallets, underwear basics to belts. We've hit all the bases at prices you'll like. So put Dad on Sears Father's Day team, and he'll know you're no rookie when it comes to gift selection.
Nothing but the best for my dad.
Like Sears Best Sports Shirts, now just $9.99. Save $4 on each. Great Father's Day gifts. And each wrestling sport shirts in solid stripes are specially knit, so they're comfortable next to the skin, neat looking for the rest of the world. Complete the gift with Sears Best Double Knit Slacks, also $4 off. Regular cut slacks now just $13.99.
Sears Best for the best guy I know, Dad.
Sale ends June 16th. Price of the dates may vary in Alaska and Hawaii. Available at most larger Sears retail stores.
We're very
Life is not easy. We can't quarrel with that. For some of us, it's more difficult than for others. But how did Mr. and Mrs. Calvin Black find themselves in the terrible predicament that they're in?
50th Street, 50th Ave. Roger, Stephanie on the train. Transfer point raised for surface line 65 next up.
One problem after another, one right behind the other. Calvin Black losing his auxiliary janitor's job, a job he felt he'd be able to hang on to until his retirement.
We'll miss you around here, Black. Ain't every day we have to let a fella go who hasn't missed a day's work in 8 years.
Heavy medical bills for an operation each of them had to have. Savings almost eaten up by the inflation monster. Evicted.
But, Mrs. Davis, we don't... I'm sorry, Mrs. Black. My taxes are due. I got a stack of my own bills, and your rent is 3.5 months overdue. You've been served the papers, and you have to pay me by the first of the month or move out. I'm sorry, that's the way it is.
Evicted, furniture and storage, in debt, too proud to appeal for help. She sighed again, losing chronological track of their misfortunes. Why try to keep them in order? What difference would it make? The train was a means to save money. Came about so gradually that they had not fully realized they were living on the train until it happened. They had promised themselves that it would only be a temporary situation. brackish coffee and hard rolls in Nimrod's, one of their regular pause spots. They strolled across the street to the park, arm in arm. He looked down on his wife's softly chiseled Cleopatra profile, at the orderly streaks of gray swirling in a no-nonsense bun at the back of her head. Funny, he thought, how much better we get along now, compared to the way we used to argue all the time. The two of us with two grown daughters in Africa.
Africa? Who in the world y'all know in Africa?
Students from school mostly, and a whole bunch of ancestral spirits, Daddy. I mean, just think, Daddy, about the psychological comfort of knowing that you are helping, doing something that will eventually benefit mankind.
Jackie, don't you think you're a bit too young to save mankind?
Well, somebody has to start somewhere, sometime.
But you all are so young.
22 and 23? That's not young anymore. It may have been young in your day.
Well, what about those lions and all the rest of those?
Mama, that's old.
I heard that.
And so Africa it was. For the past 10 years now, ex-Peace Corps members with 5 Afro-Nigerian, Ghanaian, American grandchildren between them. He smiled, thinking of all the times different people had asked, "Where's Madeline and Jackie? Still in school?"
No, they're still in Africa. Madeline's in Lagos, Nigeria, working on a newscaster, and Jackie's teaching school in some little funny-named place in Ghana. Tamale, that's the name. It's north of Kumasi.
Some people were skeptical until he made a proud grandfather's draw on the wallet-sized pictures of his 2 daughters, their husbands, and the children. 3 for Jackie and 2 for Madeline.
Calvin, you know, honey, I've been thinking, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea.
No, baby, no, not now anyway. Not till we save enough money to get a place to get on our feet. Just can't stand the idea of people prying all through your life, leafing through like you were a mail order catalog or something before they decide whether or not you really need some help. You know the way they do.
Well, like I said, I was just thinking.
As usual, she eased away from the subject, content to allow her man the full measure of his sense of pride. Between the 2 of them picking up odd jobs, they had managed to save $300 during the past month. She was the official budgeteer. They practically lived in the want ads, looking for anything regular and union, Calvin insisted.
We ain't gonna be scared for nobody. Nobody. I wouldn't care if I had to shovel snow with a splinter. There better be a union backing me up.
Mrs. Mahalia Black glanced up at her husband's bristling, gray-flecked mustache. The humor lines had never left the corner of his eyes, the power in his jawline, and nodded her head with exasperation and a deep sense of love. Calvin Black, his name meaning to her that you shouldn't beg, borrow what you can't repay, steal, or give up. She leaned her head affectionately against his shoulder for a few steps.
Poor man ain't got nothing but his word and his dignity. And if you don't keep both of them, he ain't worth a pitch of warm spit.
It's Sears National Sporting Goods Week, featuring super values like the Sears Best Jewelry Family Size 10. Now $50 off, only $199.99. This is the 10 tested and approved by the first man to conquer Mount Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary. It's 10 by 14 feet, sleeps 8 adults comfortably, and most people can stand up anywhere inside. You save $50 on Sears Best Hillary 10, only $199.99 through June 16th. Prices and dates may vary in Alaska and Hawaii.
My dad's power hungry because he's anxious to tackle new projects with power tools for Father's Day. At Sears, find super values in a Craftsman reversible drill, saber saw with manual scroller, and dual action pad sander, each at $20 savings, now just $29.99. And check Sears Heavy Duty Router with case at $43 savings, based on regular separate prices in Sears' current power hand tool catalog. So this Father's Day, let Craftsman satisfy your power-hungry dad while you save money at Sears. Prices may vary in Alaska and Hawaii.
Is that eggnog you're drinking? Mm-hmm. Gin June? Sure. And after this, I'm going to Sears to wrap myself in a fall coat. What? At the preseason coat layaway at Sears, I'll save 25% on any coat I choose. Preseason or last year's leftovers? Mm-mm. All are fall 1979 style. And a deposit holds my coat until October 1st, 1979. Save 25% during Sears preseason coat layaway sale now at most Sears retail stores. Sale ends June 23rd. Dates may vary in Alaska and Hawaii.
All items available at most larger Sears retail stores.
The story of the strange odyssey continues.
Somehow, despite the treacherous nature of their present lifestyle, things seem to work out after a fashion. Most of the strange things happened at night, on any given night. Weirdos molesting people are making an attempt. Strange folks who popped onto the train from psychological boxes that had no labels on them. Sick people. The blacks had established a sentry system, one staying awake until the end of the line going one way, the other taking up the watch for the return trip. But to offset the bad vibes put in motion by the weirdos, there were a baker's dozen they had become friendly with. Familiar strangers, in a manner of speaking. Some were young, a few their age, black, white, yellow, an Indian chief, or so he hinted. Good-hearted people. Rediscovering that they could use one fare to crisscross the city if they changed trains at the proper points. They became sightseers in a city that they had lived all of their adult lives in.
Look at that. What's the name of that building? I've seen it in a book somewhere.
That building, my dear, is called, well, it used to be called,
Somehow, unbelievably, they had developed a lifestyle within this mobile frame of reference.
Calvin, should we get the clothes out today or wait till the middle of the week?
I'd say let's wait till the middle of the week. You don't look too wrinkled to me.
Looking not too wrinkled had become their criteria for respectability, as well as a super private joke between a man 62 years old and his wife, a woman 58 years young.
Yeah, they should have been younger.
From being a pair of early morning risers and walkers, they became afternoon strollers. Just a couple of middle-aged, park-benched sun lovers. After catching 40 winks on a sun-warmed park bench, lazily watching the innocent play of children, they strolled 5 blocks to the community library and read for a few hours. Twilight and the developing winds of the evening informed them that it was time to head towards home, the L train. After a month, they knew what to expect on Saturday night, and they tried to avoid it for as long as possible.
Which station you want to go to, honey?
Don't matter. 63rd Street, I guess. Makes just as much sense to call the end of the line the beginning as it does to call it the end.
They maintained purposeful strides, keeping enough of a pace to inform would-be mothers that they weren't a couple of seniles plodding along. They paused in front of a furniture store window to watch color television with a small circle of people, smiled at the silent antics of an old Bud Abbott and Lou Costello movie. 2 a.m. Mrs. Black, maintaining the return to the South Side watch, felt tempted to nudge her husband awake, but thought better of it. What sense would it make to have his rest disturbed to look at 2 people kissing? She studied the couple across the aisle from them. It was so beautiful to see people in love. They seemed to have such a glow about them. She subconsciously draped her arm across the back of her husband's seat. People in love were her favorite sights on the train. She mentally blocked out most of the ugly pictures that flickered through from time to time. The vicious arguments that people stamped onto the train The hundreds of ways people casually demonstrated their lack of concern, consideration, and respect for each other. People in love were her favorite people. They were so nice to each other and the people around them.
39th Street, 39th Street. Time to report for surface lines. Watch your step department train, please.
They didn't depart. They stayed on. Because by then the L train was where they lived. It had become their home.
They published this in Essence.
Essence magazine.
Yeah.
Sears Radio Theater will continue after this message from your
Also
local
the thing
station.
that Ralph had about
Don't worry about the gas shortage this summer. Your family can have its best summer ever and still be a
they would have to train school. Is that
you can spend with friends around your pool. Easygoing, hassle-free days knowing that your children are at home in your pool. A summer-long vacation in your own backyard. A top-quality Doughboy swimming pool from Walmart is the answer to another hot St. Louis summer and a gas shortage. Their factory-trained pool chemistry will make sure you get the pool that really fits your needs. For as little as $399, Walmart now you can be a pool by next week.
I think they put it on TV with Peter used to know.
I think it was.
Angela Lansbury. And they take this train all the way from Berlin to Siberia or somewhere. They have murders, romances, and all kinds of stuff out
The definition of father. Father is the male parent of the species, also fondly referred to as dad.
I had some
How about Payton?
different ideas about
Also, Daddy can
Papa and Pa.
and Sugar Daddy.
the romantic
Scratch that last one.
Right, okay.
And Tata.
How about Pappy?
I'm sure you
This
did.
definition has been brought to you by the
But as you said, radio for
But there are many more gift ideas
family.
for Father's Day.
Elliot was
There
so
are ways to say father.
go hip hop. My mind was working. Odie, they can't do that.
In the market for a truly fine new home? Compare the quality and value of Treetop Village.
They can't.
Once you get down to it, you'll see why so many smart home buyers have already
Well,
chosen
just gonna have
Treetop
a little
Village.
kisses.
The sunken living
Kisses
rooms,
and-
cathedral ceilings, and
These are
greenhouse
adults.
windows, and 90 and 95% financing readily
That was
available.
okay because
There
people
are
were
all
not
reasons
living
that
as
Treetop
long.
Village is so popular.
And so
Located in
that
West County,
just
1 mile
changed
west of
the
141 on Big Bend in the Parkway School District. Prices from $61,500 to $80,000.
I got pulled into it. I thought,
Every night it seemed had its own special kind of passenger. Youngsters going to dances or movies, late night workers coming and going, and of course, the Saturday night revelers.
Have a drink, got it? What you celebrating? What am I celebrating? What am I celebrating? What are you celebrating? I'm celebrating the history of all the celebrations I've ever celebrated. Here, let's celebrate. Oh, come on now, honey. I just took a couple of sips to humor that guy.
I know.
She slipped her hand into his, amused by his slight discomfort. Absorbed by the good vibe she felt emanating from the two couples, obviously winding up a double date in the seats in front of them. Sunday exploded on them with strong sunshine and humid heat. Calvin paced back and forth in front of the ladies' room at the edge of the park.
Well, it's about time. I was beginning to think you were making yourself a new face in there.
I would have to be dissatisfied with the face I have in order to feel a need for a new one. I can assure you, Mr. Black, I am well pleased with the one I have.
And that goes double for me, honey.
Oh, Calvin.
That's so sweet.
He laced his strong right arm around her trim waist as they strolled through the streets church-bound. Normally they were Baptists, attending the First Trinity Baptist Church, but they found it impossible to continue their attendance and the social life connected to it under the stress of their problems. This Sunday they were attending another kind of church, a response to a couple of flyers placed in their hands by a gentle face with iron-rimmed Mickey Mouse glasses and a great spiran of a beard. Come, the flyer said, give praise to the great whatever, share fellowship and other goodies.
That's right.
Refreshments served after services. The Gracious Fellowship Group. Refreshments served after services was the lure that prompted Mahalia Black to coerce her husband to attend. The address indicated that it was a few blocks from the University of Chicago, Hyde Park.
You know, this really ought to be fun. I can just see it in my mind's eye. The Gracious Fellowship. A bunch of beards and horn rims sitting around in the days.
I'm sure that refreshments will mean more than a bowl of punch. Probably they'll have sandwiches too. Anyway, it'll keep us from spending money for dinner at Nimrod's tonight. Remember that vegetarian dinner we went to?
This place.
5201. Yeah, this is it. Ooh, it's a beautiful place. Oh, beautiful, isn't it?
Most homes look beautiful to me these days.
Welcome to the Gracious Fellowship. Please come in and make yourselves at home. My name is Marvin, and I'm glad you could make it.
I'm Calvin. This is my wife, Mahalia.
Oh, yes, we met on the train, if I remember correctly.
Yes, on the L when you invited us to...
Refreshments are over there. The formal segment of the Gracious Fellowship will commence in a few minutes. And once again, welcome.
The group of men, women, and children, white, black, yellow, and a few shades in between, marked their entrance with friendly glances and open smiles.
What do you make of it?
I would like to open our Gracious Fellowship group meeting, as usual, by giving thanks to the great whatever for allowing us to be here, clothed, fed, coming from homes filled with peace and love. From the puzzled expressions on the faces of some of our guests, I feel I should explain why we of the Gracious Fellowship refer to the great whatever as the great whatever. Because we realized when the fellowship was formed 10 years ago, that different names for the great whatever has often been responsible for creating hostility, divisions between people, and that by any name, the great whatever is still whatever it is. We feel that whatever we called it, it would still be whatever it was.
That's right. That's right.
Now then, having spoken my little speech, I open the floor to whatever.
A succession of members stood to talk for a few minutes about whatever they felt strongly about. There was no rhetoric, no egotistical ranting, no propagandist. The language was calm, logical, idealistic, and warm. A drawling Nebraskan who came to the Gracious Fellowship meetings to be surrounded by the nicest folks he had met since migrating from Wolf Meads, Nebraska. Whatever. A young man who had rediscovered the depths of his feeling for Judaism in meetings with the Gracious Fellowship. Whatever. An Indian student from Benares who testified to the effect that America was a great and gracious country. Whatever. An alcoholic who used the meetings to strengthen his resolve not to return to the demon rum. Whatever. A young black couple, the woman glowing with her first pregnancy, spoke of the closer spiritual relationship that had developed between them as a result of being a part of the Gracious Fellowship. Whatever.
Well, you know, when we first walked in here, I have to say, I had a few doubts about taking care of the Lord's business like this. Calling him the great whatever and all. I had the feeling that me and my wife had stumbled into one of those therapy things. You know, where people are addicted to sitting around in a circle feeling sorry for each other. But that's not what I found. No confusion, no crybabies, just a bunch of good folks being gracious. Coming from a strong down-home Baptist tradition, I have to say, I don't take too well to the idea of religious gatherings without having any music. But as I understand it, this is more spiritual than religious. I mean, it seems that everyone has already have a religion, and you just came to...
Calvin.
Oh, yeah. Well, in conclusion, I just like to say it's nice to be among nice people, and you can call God by whatever name you want to call him by, and he's still God. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Now then, everyone, how about some refreshments?
Okay.
Easing away from the gracious fellowship goodwill 3 hours later, after mumbling sincere promises to return the following Sunday, their stomachs and Mrs. Black's ditty bag full of glassine-wrapped sandwiches, they strolled along in good spirits.
Those were really nice people. Really nice.
I second that.
You know, it's a sin, a shame. We become so used to the idea of people being mean and nasty to each other that we forget how sweet people can be. Now, who would believe that we have a group of people right here in this city who just meet to share goodwill?
Or whatever.
Oh, oh, I feel so good. I know everything is going to work out for us.
Soon, I hope.
You know, I have a great idea. Now, since we've had such a nice time this afternoon, why don't we continue it? Hold on to it a little longer. Wouldn't it be nice to go somewhere and take a long, hot bath and sleep between fresh, clean sheets and not listen to wheels all night? I'll be built by strangers.
Honey, even my mind didn't want to agree with you. My aching backwood. Where do you want to go?
A hotel.
A hotel?
Mm-hmm. A cheap one near here. I think we deserve to treat ourselves from time to time.
Well, I guess we just have to call you a wild and crazy gal.
Or whatever.
What can I do for you?
Well, we'd like a room.
Short time?
Well, is the rate much less for a short time than a longer time?
It all depends, lady. Some people have been known to pay more for a short time and less for a long time.
Look, let's get the jive. Now, we want a room. What do you charge for an overnight stay?
$10.50 with a buck key deposit, which you get back when you turn the key in.
We'll take it.
Payable in advance.
Lewis,
Great
1970.
man, honey.
All right.
She did say cheap hotel. Now that I got confused. The elevator.
Dinosaur's gonna take it.
I have my doubts till we reach the 4th floor.
Sound effects,
It must be
ladies
older
and
than black pepper.
Epsom salts.
Here it is.
Thank God. I thought we were going to have to risk going down in that junkyard again. Thanks, Smith.
Here. Well, I'll be. Will you look at this? An old-fashioned full poster. Now, that's what I call character.
Oh, it's got dust, though. That's what it's got.
And a big bathtub with hot water.
Mrs. Mahalia Black stood at the side of the bed, staring down onto her husband's face, the firm jawline relaxed by sleep. After 32 years of marriage, good and bad times, she felt closer to him than to any other person on earth. She loved him as much as she knew he loved her, and they were friends. She wandered away from the bedside
and his deep sleep, to stare at the flickering neon lights on the street below. There were so many people she knew they could turn to. Their daughters, a letter would do it, relatives, friends, social agencies, but she knew they couldn't. Not yet. She turned from the window and smiled in his direction.
No, Calvin. You old stubborn mule.
No, it's good.
You sure?
Next time you hear a strange noise in the night, turn on your lights in seconds without leaving your bed.
It's now possible with Sears' new home control system. Get a feeling of added security thanks to the convenient command console that controls up to 16 lights, lamps, or appliances from one location. This $39.99 console sends coded signals to lamp, wall switch, or appliance modules, available at $13.99 or $14.99 each. Prices may vary in Alaska and Hawaii.
Cleaning his eyelashes.
Sweet smell of success is the mites. And when you give that exceptional man in your life a gift of English leather or British sterling fragrances from Sears, the smell of success, simply and wonderfully.
I'm sure. That's what the eye doctor said, that cleans out the mites. Little bug that on your eyelashes.
It's not trying to misdirect anybody.
Choose these or many other popular men's fragrances at Sears.
Summer is the time to enjoy the most with the least, like jogging shorts cut up to there and tucks trimmed for action at Sears. Misses save 20%
Not
on
a distraction
$40
anymore.
and jogger shorts $3.99.
Could be a commercial. What do you think?
Juniors, run in for special purchases on colorful Go With Everything tube tops, $2.99 each. T-shirt tops are $3.99 and jogging racer shorts only $4.99. A special purchase though not reduced is an exceptional value. Prices and dates may vary in Alaska and Hawaii.
All items available at most larger Sears retail stores.
I can see again. There it is, radio. Video.
Tyson again. And here's the concluding act of...
Concluding act.
A sense of pride.
27th Street next, ladies and gentlemen. Transfer point for East and West Surface connections. Don't forget to validate your transfers. Over and out.
Mrs. Black tried to guess from the expression on her husband's face what kind of day he had gone through as he hopped on the train to keep their 6 p.m. rendezvous. As usual, his face was set, determined, but unfathomable.
Hi, honey. I thought I'd missed you.
Well, how did it go for you?
Well, I went to 4 places and got a good response from each one of them. This one lady at the office where I put in an application for teacher's aid seems to think I have a pretty good chance when school starts back. She talked about the need for mature people being used as role models. I have to call her back next Friday. What happened with you?
Well, I got a sore thumb. $42.86 for nailing half a house together.
You know something? All we need is another $100 or so. Enough to pay a month's rent, the security fee, and get our furniture out of storage.
Oh, one thing at a time. Now, let's not count our chickens before the eggs have been laid.
Well, I was just thinking ahead, that's all.
Next stop, 51st Street. Next stop. Hang on and away we go.
Midnight on the B train. She closed her eyes and inhaled the aroma swirling in through the open window. She had developed an authentic love-hate for some of the moods, for some of the atmospheres that the train took them through. The heavy, rich smell of cooking food. The postures she caught people in on their back porches, in their backyards. The rank odor of burning garbage. The aromas of different kinds of perspiration. She had never been aware of how distinct each person's smell could be. Some people almost stifled her with a stale cigarette, sour alcohol smell. They were matched on another level by the ladies who reeked with popular brands of perfume that smelled like burning magnolia blossoms, or frankincense, and boiling cabbage. Tonight, her mood lifted by the possibilities ahead of them. She relaxed the tensions creasing her forehead and allowed the train to sway her into a light, untroubled sleep, despite the fact that it was her watch time.
Hey, we just passed my stop. What's going on here?
The blacks, jolted awake by the outraged passenger, exchanged concerned looks. The train was moving faster than normal, and it had missed a station stop. Calvin pulled himself to his feet and started toward the motorman's booth 3 coaches away, swaying and lurching with the jerky motion of the train, his wife trailing by a few wobbly steps, followed by the irate commuter. In the next coach, all of the passengers, seasoned travelers who hadn't reached their stations, catnapped, twiddled their thumbs, or glared at their newspapers, oblivious to the fact that the train, for some reason, had become a runaway monster. Noticing the 3 people lurch through, others became aware of how much faster they were moving.
What's happening? Why is this guy going so fast?
Well, nothing to worry about. He's probably just hurrying to complete his run to get home before dinner.
She peered around her husband's shoulder at the motorman slumped over the control panel. Recognizing the squat frame and cherubic face, he was one of their A people.
Oh, my God. Looks like he's dead. How do we stop this thing?
Calvin, do something. If we hit a curve, we'll fall off the track.
Can somebody do something? Will you stop this damn before we run off the track? No, stop there.
Here, help me. Pull him out so I can get to the controls.
Oh, have mercy.
There. See if he's doing it.
As they pulled the man from his workspace, his fists unclinched the control switch, breaking electrical contact and bringing the train to a tortuously slow stop in the middle of the 61st Street curve. Later, transit officials boarded the train, suspended as it was between stations, added their congratulations to those of the passengers, and eased the train into the next station.
You just saved this run from a heck of a crack-up, Mr.
Black. Calvin Black. This is my wife, Mary.
I'm pleased to meet you both.
The sudden appearance of the local television station newscaster, radio interviewers, and news reporters crowded around them on the station platform alerted the blacks to the idea that they had become instant celebrities.
That was certainly a very courageous act, Mr. Black. May I ask you, sir, what overwhelming emotion forced you to take the action you took?
Well, I don't know too much about overwhelming emotions, young lady. But at my age, you kind of hang on to your overwhelming emotions until...
Calvin, honey.
What made me do it? Well, I guess the thought of losing our happy home on rails made me do it.
I beg your pardon, sir?
By 7 a.m. the next morning, the city had been informed via the media, plus word of mouth, of how the blacks had been living for almost 5 weeks. And Mr. and Mrs. Black stood proudly in the center of the mayor's office, unwrinkled, having been taxied from one of the city's swankier hotels, courtesy of the Chicago Transit Authority.
And we want you to know, Mr. and Mrs. Black, that as a reward for your courageous and timely actions, the Chicago Transit Authority has authorized me to present these gold medallions to you and your missus. And furthermore, to present you with 2 lifetime senior citizens passes, allowing you to ride any form of public transportation in this city absolutely free. Congratulations, and our sincerest thanks.
The assorted strangers in the mayor's office applauded dutifully and waited for Calvin Black, hero, to make the normal, modest hero's acceptance speech. television cameras, microphones, reporters' pencils, and smiles edged in for close-ups.
Now, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. I really do appreciate receiving these medallions and passes. We really do. Don't we, huh?
Yes, we do. And thank you all very much.
But, that ain't really going to do very much to solve our basic problem, which is having a place to stay. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would say, look at this guy. All he did was prevent a runaway train from killing a few people, and the next thing you know, he wants the moon and a chair for doing it. Well, that's not exactly where I'm coming from. But I will be bold enough to say this. We have a tendency to take our so-called heroes too lightly these days, which I guess is the basic reason why lots of people don't want to go out of their way to do anything, especially for other people.
Before the conclusion of Mr. Calvin Black's 3-minute prime-time human interest speech, liberally laced with folkloricisms, sarcasm, and truth, the mayor's switchboard was lit up with job offers for the blacks, and from the gracious fellowship, the promise of a furnished home. Mrs. Black dissolved into grateful tears when the information was relayed to them.
Now, what were you crying for, woman? I told you one day last week, you can't keep a good man down.
Especially if he's got a good woman by his side.
Or whatever.
And whatever you mean.
Nothing but the best for my dad.
Like Sears Best Double-Knit Slacks on sale for Father's Day. Regular cut slacks are just $13.99 and $4 off. Choose popular solids for 5 patterns and wrinkle-resistant double-knit Cottrell polyester. Top off his day with Sears Best Short Sleeve Knit Sport Shirts. Also at $4 off. Now just $9.99.
It's Sears Best for the best guy I know, Dad.
Sale ends June 16th. Prices and dates may vary in Alaska and Hawaii at most large Sears retail stores.
And now a special message of interest to shoppers across America from Sears. Everybody has been talking about inflation. Well, here's what Sears is helping to do about it.
Starting the 1st of May, all prices in Sears Spring General Catalog will be reduced 5%. This means a discount of 5% will automatically be taken off the price of anything and everything you order from the Spring General Catalog between May 1st and July 31st, 1979.
Also beginning in May,
Prior to
Sears retail stores across the nation will reduce their regular price of selected items, which means you can expect even greater values.
In addition, for limited periods of time,
I wonder what happens when the step goes down on this side of it.
items in our retail stores.
They probably don't even think about it, I guess.
Sears super values on TV, radio, and magazines, and your local paper.
But I look at when he
price
jumps
cuts each month.
in order to avoid the storehouse here.
These are some of the ways
He's right
Sears is
down
helping to
in
do
the
it.
back yard.
Sears, where America
Yeah, the cat
shops for
outside.
value.
That's what he's talking about. Not our cat.
So, that was...
They're wrapping up with the names of the...
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah, they're wrapping up with names.
I'll hold out for a minute.
The Sears Radio Theater has been brought to you by Sears, Roebuck and Company, where our policy is satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Sears, where America shops for value. A Sense of Pride was written by Odie Hawkins, produced and directed by Elliott Lewis. Your hostess was Cicely Tyson. Our stars were Nick Latour, Helen Martin, and Jim Mapp. Featured in the cast were Ray Tasco, Louise Heath, Jerry Hausner, Gay Nelson, Marvin Miller, and Dawes Butler. The music for Sears Radio Theater was composed and conducted by Nelson Riddle. This is Art Gilmore speaking. The Elliott Lewis production of Sears Radio Theater is a presentation of CBI.
Wait, I think you've been a little bit unfair to those big gas hogs. I mean, you know, they've got to have some good points. like maybe comfort or luxury.
And that's the end of that.
I'm going to say a few words before it all comes to an end. I have a new book out. The book is called A Storyteller's Story. And if you've been listening to the radio on video stories, you'll know that, well, I'm a storyteller.
Always.
I can't help myself. I'm a storyteller. So this particular book is something that I'm calling semi-fictional autobiography. I know it's a new genre, and the publishing companies haven't picked up on it yet, which is one of the reasons why this is self-published out of Author House. A semi-fictional autobiography.
It can be purchased on Amazon or at Author House, or just go online and Google it, A Storyteller's Story by Odie Hawkins.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
It can be purchased on Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
This book?
Yes, okay. Or put a search in, your Google search, and say you want the book, A Storyteller's Story by Odie Hawkins. Your website is www.odiehawkins.com, whereupon people can find
my
your
website?
other books.
What is that?
Your website is www.odiehawkins.com.
O-D, like in...
O-D-I-E.
Oh, okay.
odiehawkins.com.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you a hard time.
I know you didn't.
Zola, Salena-Hawkins is doing such a superb job as the producer, director, technician, that I have to joke with her sometimes because it's like the old story. If you took it too seriously, you would either laugh or cry.
Yeah.
In this instance, I'm laughing.
And I'm laughing.
I'm
We hope you enjoyed the show.
We'll see you next Monday.
We'll see you next Monday for
Same time.
the radio.
The next show, it will be called Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's called Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I can't find it.
It's-
Uh-oh.
Would be on the other
Which one was
side.
this called? A Sense of Pride?
This was a Sense of
Oh,
Pride.
well, next weekend we'll be at a weekend lead.
A weekend
For
pass.
those who have been in the Army or been in the armed services.
So a weekend pass?
Weekend Pass. Weekend Pass is simply the story about two guys that have a weekend pass and what happens.
Okay, I'll see you in uniform.
Okay, I'll see you. You'll see me in uniform?
I'll see you.
You believe it, I'll put it on.
All right. Until then. Salute on, Odie Hawkins. Salute on. Ciao, y'all.